Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast, where our entire focus is helping commercial janitorial contractors succeed. You want a growing company, a thriving team, and healthy profits, and we are here to help. My name is Jordan Tong. I'm the founder of Elite BSC, a company dedicated to helping janitorial companies grow and thrive. I also serve as CEO and one of the owners of France Building Services. France is a janitorial company employing nearly 600 people. Since 2007, we grew from 1.5 million to more than 20 million in annual revenue and built what I think is one of the best teams in the world. The goal of Elite BSC and this podcast is to give owners in the industry a vision of where their company can be and the information and tools to get there. I want to share what I have learned over the years to make this a reality for you. Hey guys, Jordan here. So on today's episode, I am excited to play a recording of an interview that I did with Gerald Fong of BrightGo. It's a new software company that is trying to build a web-based, or that has built a web-based application for janitorial business owners to sort of run their business from soup to nuts is sort of the goal. And the idea is it's a very data-driven sort of platform. Gerald is a super sharp guy. He's a Silicon Valley engineer, has worked for a lot of the big companies out there, including Meta, and worked on some cool projects. Has a string of successes behind him that I think make him a really valuable voice in our industry. And him and his business partner have really taken their expertise in developing platforms and have turned their attention to the janitorial industry to do that, which is really exciting. And Gerald's a super guy, engaging, fun to talk to, really knows his stuff. And so I think that you'll find this interview interesting. So in this will be a two-part interview. So it'll be this episode, and there's going to be another one forthcoming, and it's going to be talking about a white paper. So but this first one is me interviewing Gerald, talking about the history of his background and BrightGo and how that got started and what they're aiming to do, some of the problems in the industry and how they're trying to solve some of those problems. And so I think you'll find this interesting. I certainly did. And then a subsequent episode is going to come out later this week that is going to be on a white paper that Elite BSC has co-written with BrightGo, talking about metrics and data in the industry, sort of a benchmarking kind of white paper, looking at data in the industry using a lot of data sources that I think is super helpful and going to be something that people can read and then have a lot of application points really for their business. So that episode will be in a few days after this one drops. So without further ado, let's dive right into this interview with Gerald. All right, Gerald. Hey, man. Good to see you. I'm excited about having this conversation with you guys. So we're going to be breaking this up into a two-part series where we're going to talk about maybe the story of your story and the story of BrightGo and sort of how it relates to the janitorial industry and what you guys are trying to do. And then we're going to talk about, in a subsequent episode, about a white paper that you guys have published. And Elite BSC, we've helped in that process a bit for you guys and go over that. So maybe let's just start out, introduce yourself and tell who you are, and let's and just maybe a high level of BrightGo, and then we'll go back and start at the beginning.
Perfect. So my name is Gerald. Jordan, thank you for hosting me. I hear great things about Elite BSC and what you guys are doing out there. Excited to come out for the conference coming up in 2 months or so. Let's see. So a little bit about my background. So my background's I grew up in Silicon Valley, Bay Area, California. Parents were in technology. I worked for a number of well-known technology companies like Meta, Instagram, Stripe, Dropbox. I built my first company when I was in my early 20s. Eventually sold it. It was funded by YC and Sam Altman. Fast forward a little bit later, I'd been, my mom's a property manager, so I'd always been kind of, whether I liked it or not, was brought to properties, was hearing what's going on. My mom would tell me stories about, picking which vendor to use for various, trades or different things she was trying to do. And eventually, when I was working at Meta for long enough, and I took a break and I left, I was thinking to myself, how can I help people who need the most help? it's it's more satisfying. It's also a good way to build business in my view, because then people really want the product, whatever you build. And so I went down the rabbit hole of speaking to more people in the janitorial industry, and um, I just set a goal of speaking to 100 people. Did that in about 3 months. I teamed up with my co-founder Sagar, who some of you may know, and the two of us just went out there and met as many people as we could. We interviewed probably 300 to 400 people in the course of say 6 months, and at that point, we felt there might be an opportunity to help people with better technology, better software. There's a longer story around what we do, etc. But high level, people want something incredibly powerful, but also very easy to use, and they don't want to. They want to have one source of truth where they can do a lot of the key parts of the business that's easy to use, and also get the insights they want to run their business more profitably.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the high
So
level.
was Meta the place you were at before you started BrightGo?
Yeah, I was at Meta for about 3, 4 years. I was working on Instagram ads at the time, which was I joined there because it was their highest revenue per employee part of the company. It's a crazy story. They went from I think like 50 million in revenue to 20 billion in revenue in about 5 years. So that's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah.
You
Right.
just don't see that anywhere in the world. So it was great to see the tail end of that story. I wasn't there for the very beginning, but seeing some of that. But yeah, and then I left after a few years there. It just felt it's a great place to work. Really talented, smart people. But I also wanted, I viewed it as I was making Zuckerberg so much money, but I wanted to like build something that I could feel more proud of and feel more personal about. But my role there was a mix of engineering management, and product as well. Um,
Okay. So you're part of the reason why I have to have screen time limits for my kids on the
yeah.
Instagram app.
To some extent, yes.
Yes. So yeah, so what I'm super interested in this about the transition. So you left there and you guys, I guess you and Sagar maybe had a relationship before that you were had
Yeah.
interacted or maybe worked at a company together at some point.
Yeah, we had known each other for about 10 years. When we both moved to the city after graduating college, this was over 10 years ago, we were just hanging out, spending a lot of time together. There are many times where we considered we were trying to hire each other. There are times when he was running a team or I was running a team or a company where we were both trying to, he was the head of engineering for another 150-person company, kind of data science for Hollywood and now TV ads. And I was in various leadership roles running my previous company, and also had a leadership role at Meta. So we'd always been trying to hire each other, and kind of work with each other, and kind of stars aligned. We were both in a similar timing in terms of looking for something new. So yeah, we both had an open mind when we started to explore the janitorial industry, and we wanted to make sure that there was a pull from the industry. Like we don't want to just show up and nobody wants it, and so we waited for that. And then at that point, we're like, let's both jump in. We
Were you
decided to
guys
do that.
looking at other underserved areas
We
as well? Like I know janitorial is where you guys ended up landing, but were there some other underserved markets you guys were exploring?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we did look at some other places as well, other industries, but we just didn't feel nearly the same kind of feeling. I think it was just also the people in this industry are so nice and so welcoming. It was it can be a little scary from the outside in the beginning because the margins are so low in this industry, and it's technology. There's a lot of reasons why people haven't adopted technology in this industry as well. So there's also the feeling of like, should I even be helping this in the beginning, right? But as we started to spend more and more time with people in this industry, we started to really appreciate it, really enjoy it. We even had moments where we just I remember there were some people we were getting to know. We just rented out an Airbnb, and then we just invited people over, and we just drank whiskey with them, ate barbecue and whiskey. It was in Texas, and we just spent a lot of time, several days, just talking about the janitorial industry with different people. And so we
And
pulled the
there's a
trigger.
certain level of I've always thought of this here. There's a certain level of humility that sort of permeates our industry a bit. Like
Yeah.
it's people from all walks of life that I find from corporate America, engineers, just I know someone who was a Cornell engineer, chemical engineer, I think, who's now running a janitorial company. So just all sorts of backgrounds, and you're doing a really humble service for people. It's a legitimate need, but when you think of what's the lowest on the totem pole, you always think the janitor, right? And so it creates this culture in the industry that's welcoming, and it's a really neat space to be in. It's a very down to earth space to be in with dealing with a lot of real people. Okay, so you guys landed in the janitorial industry. Let's talk for a few minutes, like high level, what BrightGo does. How are you guys trying to serve the industry? Like, let's talk about the technology and the platform you guys have built and what need that's trying to address.
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of different needs. I think the general challenge that a lot of BSCs have ran into is either they have software where it's not powerful enough, it's easy to use, but it only does a small set of things. So they're now having to add multiple things to their platform, and things just don't talk to each other as well as you'd like. So that's a situation that some people are in. They're using six different, seven different, eight different platforms, and some pieces are really good for what they do, and they might be slick, might be easy to use, but it doesn't see the entire thing. Like job costing is a great way to look at it. Can you run a full job costing? Can you understand where everything is? Does it actually reconcile from, the person clocking in a shift to then telling you that, hey, you're going to actually be underwater on that contract? So kind of that full soup to nuts is really hard. On the other hand, you have businesses that have a platform, have systems that are more unified, but then it might be more dated. It might not be as easy to use. It's not, you might then realize, okay, this is actually not great in certain parts. And so what people really want in this industry that I've just been hearing is that they want one powerful system. They might still use one or two or three other things, but probably not eight. They might still keep, one or two other things, but they want it to generally unify how their system runs so that they can more easily understand, am I actually profitable in this job? Better track a lot of the key things that make the difference in the business. Margins aren't high in this business, and as people scale, they have to become really precise and have a really good operations. And so how do we empower people to do that in a simple way? So that's what it is at a high level. And what that basically boils down to is we do operations. So that means time and attendance, everything around quality assurance. And then we have more pieces that are coming out around kind of how you can run your full business from soup to nuts.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I think we can resonate with that at our company over the years, struggling with this combination of, okay, something like a one size fits all thing. And there are a couple options out there, but they had limitations and some things are a little bit dated. And so we've dealt with some frustrations and not, these aren't bad companies we're working with. They're good people trying to meet a similar sort of need. But I think us and other people we know are bumping up against this where we're struggling to, we're pulling together various pieces of technology to try to integrate things. And if those things aren't talking to each other, we end up feeling like we're kind of discombobulated in terms of how we're running our operation. And so yeah, I think you're right on. I think everyone is facing this challenge, and our industry is very underserved in this area. And so we're sort of the last people to get sort of whatever it is that's out there available for companies. We're sort of on the tail end of actually receiving that in our industry. So
Yeah.
let's follow up here. You guys, if you go to your website, it's brightgo.com. Is that right? Yeah, brightgo.com. And you guys have on there Moneyball for janitorial. So, I love data. I'm an engineer background, and I just work super. My brain is an analytical kind of brain, and so the idea of making decisions based on good data is helpful. So, talk a little bit about what your pitch is there, and the tie to Moneyball, which is an awesome movie.
Yeah. I think we had given this talk at one of the other BSCI, one of their events, and it was like a full room. They had to pull chairs in, 150 people in the room. All the current and past presidents of BSCI were there. The session kind of the prompt there was kind of how to go from just using gut and intuition to manage your accounts and business to using data to supplement that. I think at a high level, anybody could pull up, the most recent game, the score, breakdown by players. You can look at all these different stats. And, if you have a fantasy football league or, participate in any of these different areas, and even like sports betting, you have so much data. You have so much information on how much each person's getting paid, whether they're worth the cost or not. And to a certain extent, you can flip it on its head and say, well, why don't you have that for your business, right? If you have all this data for one of your favorite hobbies, why don't you have this on your actual day job? Instead of armchair quarterbacking, well, what do you know about your own business, right? And so a lot of people actually don't have very real time information, right? You can look at the score of last night's game. That's pretty easy to do. But can you know how did you do last night in terms of profitability? That's actually quite hard for a lot of people to do because there's a lot of things that aren't straightforward, right? Like, is last night going to set you up to then incur overtime at the end of the week? That's a very complicated question. Do you know which accounts are underwater right now or are likely to trend in underwater? compared to the previous time you did it? Or is it just that, you have to wait till your book's closed and then, 15 days after that, then actually know you're kind of where you stand on every account. So I think the entire idea is just how do you get faster feedback cycles? I think the analogy I'd use is like, if you're flying a plane, like are you using the rear view mirror to fly the plane, or are you actually able to look forward?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the high level, right? Because by the time the pay period ends, like you're just going to have to pay the payroll. You can't go and then change those numbers. So how could you have done something during the pay period as opposed to, you're looking at the payroll numbers, you're like, shoot, we're 3% over budget, but it's too late. You've already done it. Or hey,
Right.
we have all these overtime hours.
We're almost always looking at lag indicators, and when you're in the throes of getting your business started, that's often you look back at the end of the month. How do we do? But as you scale, you're right. Like because growth often puts a magnifying glass on where the problems are, and
Yeah.
so you grow, then that problem grows with it, and so you do have to start using I guess more lead indicators, looking at your data to see how things are going to be shaping up, as opposed to just always looking in retrospect at what happened after it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah. I always see the pattern I always see is that as companies get larger, they get better and better at being more proactive. That's just the trend, right? Like, somebody with, running a smaller business might not, they'll do the job costing in their head, but they won't actually do the exercise. But as they get larger, they're pulling up the processes, doing it earlier and earlier and earlier.
Yeah, yeah. And that's just sort of a transition, for those that are in those leadership roles early on. I get it. It's really difficult to be you're the CEO, the chief everything officer. So you're literally selling and going out and filling in
Yeah.
for cleaners at night, et cetera. But as you
Yep.
grow, your responsibilities as a leader start to change and they look different than they maybe did in the early days. So man, Jared, I am super excited about what you guys are doing in the industry. Like I'm following it. I know a lot of people are following it. We're excited. We're a little bit on the bigger end in terms of companies, but we're eyeballing what you guys are doing, and we think you're offering a lot of value to the industry. And so I'm excited for what y'all doing. And I'm thankful that you guys have chosen our industry to serve. So it's a big deal. If you found the information in this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're using. If you would like more resources or help to grow your cleaning company, head over to elitebsc.com. We have loads of articles, videos, free tools, coaching options, and a lot more. If your company is greater than $500K in revenue and you want to take your learning experience to the next level, check out our mastermind group. You can learn more about that at elitebsc.com/mastermind.